Hello, I'm Aikari. Welcome to Rappler Talk. Joining us today is transportation expert Primitivo Cal to talk about the possible solutions on traffic and road safety issues. He served as Transportation Undersecretary from 1993 to 1998. Good afternoon, Dr. Cal.
Good afternoon, Aika.
According to a study, traffic congestion cost the Philippines 2.4 billion every day in 2012. Actually, last Tuesday, the MMDA proposed possible solutions to regulate traffic in EDSA. Among those mentioned were the two-day coding scheme, one-way EDSA, banning driver-only vehicles, and carpooling. How is this feasible given the current situation in the Philippines?
Let's be selective, no? Yung mga set of measures, traffic management measures, basically dealing with the demand side. Kasi under the jurisdiction of MMDA, yun lang kanilang coverage. Although ang dapat pagtuunan din ng pansin is really the supply side, meaning increase the capacity of the transportation network, such as road network and the mass transit system. Given the mandate of MMDA, yun na nga yung kanilang solutions. And the carpooling one is a good one in my view. We really need to optimize the use of road space, and one way of doing that is to encourage, or if not come up with measures to attain higher occupancy of our private cars. So yun, but the other solution like yung two-day coding, mayroong immediate effect because people cannot adjust. In my research of the one-day coding, car users basically had already adjusted by buying another car, which would just worsen the situation. And those who have not yet bought another car, more than 70% are intending to buy another car. So while the two coding scheme is going to affect or improve traffic in the short term, it's going to worsen the situation beyond the immediate, because those who can afford will simply buy another car.
Okay. Can you tell us more about when you said something about the carpooling? We need to encourage more measures, right? One issue is about the LTFRB saying that this could be a problem if we pursue carpooling among private vehicles.
Of course, those the car users would be definitely affected, right? I mean, however, as I said, we have to do something about the use of our road space, and a past indicator or occupancy counts of private vehicles along EDSA resulted we found an average occupancy of just 2.3, you know. So really very low. So if we can increase it, then of course situation would improve. But I know some side effect like or adjustment to be done by car users, as also happen in other countries, not only that would not be in the Philippines. Filipinos are very resilient and imaginative, as what happened in other countries. Maybe they would just bring along their kasambahay to
just to have somebody.
Just to have somebody in the car.
Yeah.
No? That would be. But beyond carpooling, the success of such a scheme depends on the availability of a viable alternative. Because you are basically forcing the car users to carpool, and those who cannot should be given alternative, and the
Yes.
alternative should be the public transport system. And unfortunately, our mass transit system is not well developed. Is under is over capacity. We lack capacity on this mass transit system. I'll give you an example. Seoul, which has about the same population as Metro Manila, has ridership in their rail mass transit system of about over 5.5 million a day.
Okay.
In the Philippines, in Metro Manila, we have a ridership per day of around 1 million, which really means that in terms of network, the Seoul has more than 5 times the size of Metro Manila. So that goes to show really that in terms of capacity, both for motorists and those captive to public transport, we direly lack capacity, and we need to expand transportation system.
So, sir, being the former Undersecretary for Transportation, do you think the situation has improved or worsened throughout the years?
Well, I left as USEC 1998. From that time on, up to this time, of course, the demand has increased, population, economic activity. By the way, congestion is also a symptom of good things, not only bad things. Good things meaning that the demand has increased because of good economic performance, right? So economy has improved. So the demand has increased. Unfortunately, the supply, the gap between supply and demand has increased since 1998. In other words, the government has not been able to provide the needed capacity to deal with the increasing travel demand. The effect, of course, is worsening traffic congestion. Also, during that time, I was still part of in the decision making of introducing the number coding. Okay, the number coding. I would say I'm criticizing it now, but at that time I was part of I represented the OTC, which supported the scheme. Okay, yeah, but there is immediate, medium, and short-term effect improvement by introducing such a scheme. But what I've found out, people, as I said, have already adjusted by buying another car. This is, in fact, the product of my research.
Okay, sir. So there's a question from social media from Leonardo Barua. Regarding optimization of road space usage, clearing operations have been done recently. Do you know what's its current status?
Of?
Road space usage, optimizing road space
Yes.
usage.
I know that there's a program, especially roads outside of Asia, the side roads, clearing operation from, let us say, parking. This is a continuing program of MMDA, and it's, of course, a necessary program in order to ensure that a road space is allocated to moving traffic rather than to stationary vehicles. Yeah.
Okay. So, well, in some instances, we all know that commuters and motorists experience more than 4 hours on the road daily. Some had to wake up 4 or 5 a.m. just to avoid the morning rush, or leave the office late at night. What do you think are the possible interventions needed to alleviate the worsening traffic situation?
It's not easy. It's a combination of many measures. The first in sequence would be to improve our public transport system, in particular the rail mass transit. That should be first. Meaning providing, especially those using their cars, a viable alternative. Then having done that, then one can introduce a more strict traffic management measures. In particular, to replace the number coding with a more effective traffic restraint measure. A traffic restraint means curtailing the use of private car and encouraging, of course, the use of public transport. But private car users who would be affected should be given viable alternative. That's why the
Yes.
first task would be to improve the public transport system. And once you have done that, you now have the reason to implement a stricter traffic restraint. And what is that? Of course, scrap the number coding and then adapt similar to the scheme in Singapore, which is the electronic road pricing. In Singapore, you see, electronic road pricing is operational and adopted by other countries like London, Hong Kong, and other places. In the case of electronic road pricing, the principle really is like this. You want to continue to use your car along congested area, then you must pay for
You
it.
must pay for it.
And in the case of Singapore, it's a big amount deducted from a smart card, no? Because the electronic road pricing entails two parts. The first part is in-vehicle unit, which is really a smart card in the vehicle, and then the gantry. It's really a structure that would allow a smart card to be deducted, to be detected, and a car to be detected, and an amount will be deducted from the smart card. Okay, so that's a more effective one that really hurts the pocket, and that would reduce the volume of private cars using congested areas like EDSA.
So we really need to improve public transportation first, to incentivize private car users to
Yes, so
use
that,
it better. Yeah.
True, and also so that they do not get angry. You implement a very strict measure of traffic restraint, and yet you do not provide them with alternative. They would get angry.
That's true. So, actually, just to beat traffic, many road users are considering, maybe we should just use motorcycles instead. But data shows that motorcycle riders are most vulnerable to traffic crash incidents. In 2014, 56% of recorded injuries involved motorcycles. Do you think the situation contribute to road safety issues in the future with, more road users using motorcycle instead?
Oh, definitely. As also experienced in other countries with a high volume of motorcycles.
Yes.
But again, as you have correctly pointed out, that would be the trend because of people trying to deal with the traffic congestion. So that is something that should be, of course, addressed by authorities.
Okay. There's another question from social media. It's from Patrick Halasco. His question is, how do you deal with local government units and the not in my backyard thinking in creating and implementing a unified traffic scheme for Metro Manila?
You have, of course, the Metro Manila Development Authority. Its power should be strengthened so that the problem cited can be dealt with. It's true. I mean, local government units belonging to MMDA would have their own programs, but then the powers of MMDA should be strengthened to enable it to really coordinate the formulation of solutions and implementation of solutions.
Okay. So, I have another question regarding road safety. In 2015, over 10,000 deaths were recorded by the Philippine Statistics Authority due to traffic crash incidents again. So, these are mostly due to human error. Do you agree with this? There are various proposals being made by the LTO, for example, that targets driver education.
Oh yes, definitely. When one talks of traffic management, one should remember four E's: engineering, enactment of traffic rules and regulations. The third E is education, and the fourth is enforcement. So, education definitely plays a big part in traffic management, because what's the point of having traffic engineering schemes, of having ordinances on traffic, if these are not known to the users? So they must be known to the users through a good education program. And but then you need the last E, which is enforcement, because I think we all we do understand that even if people are, let's say, have good knowledge of traffic rules and regulations, but our discipline is not that good. Filipinos are not well known for good road discipline, right?
Yes.
So because of that, you need the last E, which is enforcement.
But yeah, because I was thinking about enforcement. You know, this has always been the problem, because we have good laws on traffic, you know, and ensuring safety on the road, but there will always be gaps. So, what do you think are the necessary actions for that?
Yan nga, education and enforcement should form part of the traffic management solutions.
Okay. So, sir, actually, in terms of policies, the only bill that we don't have, according to experts, is the child safety seats.
Yeah.
So, do you think there's a possibility that it will be passed within the year? What's needed?
Well, I do not know, because that's a legislative board.
Yeah.
But as you correctly pointed out, it's a good measure. But may I point out right away, that's not the only really measure.
Yeah.
I look at the Land Transportation and Traffic Code, or RA 4136, and I found now that it's really incomplete. It does not have, compared to laws of other countries, we lack many measures and or traffic related measures in the law. For example, even for laws, even provisions for pedestrian facilities, for non-motorized like cyclists, for cyclists, it's absent. It's absent in the law, and then so much so that the application may not be uniform, and may even be incorrect. I'll give an example.
Okay.
A good measure for a pedestrian is what is called a zebra crossing. It's a facility. It's across a road with lines, you know, and that indicates, if we look at the international practice, as soon as a pedestrian steps into the pavement or into the carriageway, vehicles should give way to pedestrian crossing.
Yes.
That's the meaning of it. But try to look at the try to look at the road network in Metro Manila. You will find this facility present at signalized intersection, which is wrong, because if you put this at signalized intersection and then the traffic signal turns green for motorists, it means that pedestrians do not have priority. So do not put that kind of provision when you cannot give priority to pedestrian, because even if a pedestrian step into the pavement and there's a traffic light which is green for motorists, the pedestrians do not have priority. So, but try to have a look. You will find this type of facility at signalized intersection. So again, it's a function of the incomplete national traffic code. And there are so many. The other one says that try to look at the code if you can find the meaning of the traffic signals. At one time, I asked my driver, "Oh, look, what's the meaning of that red flashing? Red flashing. What's the meaning?" My driver said, "It's easy, sir. That means that the traffic signal is defective." But really, what it means, if the red is flashing, that you must stop and proceed only if the way is clear. Right? That's the meaning of red flashing. But that's not present in the code, and so with many others, like rotunda or roundabout. What's the right of way rule? Okay, who has priority? Which motorist has priority in the rotunda? Now, if you go by the general rule and in the code, it says that you give way if vehicles arrive at the intersection at the same time. You give the vehicle should give way to vehicle coming from the right, but that should not be operational on a rotunda. In the rotunda, the proper right of way rule is that a vehicle already in the rotunda has priority. So that's just an example of how incomplete our land transportation and traffic code.
Okay, so we have another question from social media. It's from Luis Magsino from FB. Since we've been talking about transportation anyway, his question is, what is your take on the jeepney modernization program of the government?
Of course, it's a good program. By modernization, we mean replacing the old
ones, yes.
style jeepneys with modern one. It should be welcomed by jeepney users. Can only do good. With better design and
Yes.
especially in the form of safety. Yeah.
One issue raised the other day by the LTFRB was when they were asking for a price increase from 8 pesos to 10 pesos. But then, of course, they were saying that, you have to make sure that your services are good. So I think that's part of, the jeepney modernization program as well. So, okay, here's a follow-up again from social media by Eman Rodriguez. In controlling the growing number of private cars, is it effective if we increase the excise tax on cars?
Well, let's first put the situation in a proper context, right? In terms of car ownership, comparing among countries, even in Southeast Asia, we belong to the bottom. Meaning,
Belong to the bottom.
yeah, meaning our car ownership is still very low. So, if therefore, in the process of comparing economic situations of nations, one indicator is car ownership. What we want that we always belong to the to bottom one in terms of car ownership, which is an indicator of economic prosperity or standing. So the situation therefore in Metro Manila and other cities is not a question of high car ownership, but a question of car usage. So we should control car usage more than car ownership. I do not believe we have reached a situation where car ownership is very high, so that we need to introduce car ownership control. But we should continue to explore ways of managing car usage.
Okay. So one last question from social media by RAC. What do you have to say about federalism and decentralization of transport?
Federalism in relation to
With transportation.
with transportation. Of course, it would help because part of the problem, by the way, experienced especially in Metro Manila, is that urbanization has really, as expected, has gone up. In other words, the proportion of people living in urban areas is ever increasing. Unfortunately, the distribution of urban growth is imbalanced, more and more accommodated by Metro Manila. That's why the travel demand is very high in Metro Manila. So, to answer his question, of course, it is advantageous to balance the accommodation of urban growth by ensuring that other regional centers cater also to the urban growth, and it's not just focus on a few cities like Metro Manila, Metro Cebu, and perhaps Davao. So a policy of decentralization and strengthening of the autonomy of local government units would improve the situation by balancing the distribution of urban growth.
Okay. Okay, for the last part, what do you think is the biggest transportation problem now, and how can this be prevented in the future?
The biggest remains traffic congestion, followed maybe by road safety, and now even environmental problem like air pollution. Okay.
Yes.
So yes, traffic congestion remains to be the most serious problem, because as you mentioned at the start of the interview, a JICA study calculated in 2012 a 2.4 billion pesos economic losses per day. You can just imagine. Yeah?
But that was in 2012.
Yeah, that's right. Now it should be more. Yeah.
Okay, so on that note, thank you for joining us, Dr. Cal.
Thank you, Aika.
We've been talking to transportation expert Primitivo Cal. I'm Aikari. Thank you for joining us.